where you think, you know, these all things call into all of these institutions to revise their modules of expenditures. These continuous conferences, wastages of money, meetings, benchmark, all those funny things, benchmark. And I like the fact that His Excellency also cut all those international travels.
Oh yes, yes he did, yeah.
And probably this is the reason. So
you realized.
Because people are over moving around, doing too much of nothing. The next thing I want, because now you see we have been having arguments about the fleets of escort cars for some people. Who's financing that? So when you talk about patrols, maybe your arguments are being placed for patrols for these people. You get the point. Let's try to live within the means.
Well,
there's a lot of wastage in government institutions.
Yes.
You go to any ministry in this country and you see the number of cars that have broken down. Cars that have not even been drove for 2 years. But how? Because people drive them badly. Cars are not used for the purpose that they were purchased for. If cars are bought, for example, for police, why do you see it failing charcoal in the village? Now, after you come and say, here, repairs, what, like, we need to put some of these things in order. And I think these budget cuts will help. Yeah. You see cars of Ministry of Health, they are failing bananas, pineapples, what? So I think we need to check. There's a lot of wastage in government institutions, and probably these budget cuts will also enable a bit of streamlining.
But also one thing regarding this budget, the 49 trillion, if you analyze it very well, do you know that money to deliver and do services is about almost, we are left with only half of the budget? About 22 trillion is going to go to salaries, other amenities, but money to do work is just less than what you think. And it's funny, the budget increases, but when you scrutinize it, money that is left to work on the roads, deliver services, most of this is going on salaries, is cost of administration. Takes a very big chunk of this money that is in this budget. And it was left to just service. I'm telling you about 22 trillion. It's going to go through salaries, purchases. Now that is going to work for the people is very minimal. So you shouldn't be excited that the budget has been increased. Scrutinize it and understand what is this money going to do.
Well,
that is the
at the end
biggest
of at the end of the day, that the priorities are, because if you don't have these workers paid, it's also going to become an issue. We're going to see them striking. We saw a couple of that last year, and this is not a pattern we want to repeat. And again, if we don't look at some of the services that are supposed to be availed to the citizens, it's also going to be quite a very difficult position for government. Well, we are yet to see how this is going to turn out. Very many stories locally and internationally. Right now, we are going to go through some of them. Robert and Felix on the local stories, myself and Mollen on the international stories.
We begin with what happened at the Mpondwe border, where Uganda police has come out to give some information regarding the explosion, where a suspected bomb explosion killed 10 and injured 40 people in the eastern DRC near Mpondwe border post with Uganda. Though no terrorist group has claimed the responsibility of the attack, it is suspected that the attack was executed by the Allied Democratic Forces. Uganda joined forces are on a high alert following a terror attack in Rubiriha in eastern part of Congo near Mpondwe border in Uganda, where 10 people were killed and scores injured. The attack was carried out on a Pentecostal church. Police have suspended movement of cargo and passenger boats on Lake Albert and other water bodies at night to avert likelihood of hostile attacks. Kasese, Kikube, Bundibujo, Mpondwe and Fort Potro are under strict surveillance at key installations, including markets and parking yards, which are likely targets. At least 29 terror-related incidents are under investigations in Uganda, and police calls upon the public to remain vigilant against terror threats.
Now, police are holding at least 498 unclaimed motorcycles out of the 1,690 impounded during the first 3 days operation against border operatives without valid riding licenses. Traffic Police Directorate spokesperson Farida Nampima says some border operators have no valid documents of ownership to claim the motorcycles.
And moving on, Parliament Committee on Defence and Internal Affairs has vowed not to approve police budget for the next financial year if the force does not refrain from illegal arrests, improve staff housing, and reduce on corruption.
Also, the Constitutional Court has dismissed a right Professor George Kanyehamba's petition where he was challenging the presidential move to remove bail to capital offences and offenders and police bond. Now, the judgment delivered by 5 justices Constitutional Court, they dismissed the petition on grounds that the petition was incompetent.
Well, looking at the international stories, 3 police officers and 2 march officials have gone on trial in Indonesia, charged with negligence over their alleged roles last year in the deaths of 135 people at a football match in East Java. Now, they each face a maximum prison sentence of 5 years if convicted over the disaster, one of the world's worst stadium stampedes. And the United States is marking what would have been Martin Luther King Jr.'s 94th birthday, with advocates urging the country to commemorate the assassinated civil rights leader's legacy by truly tracking racial injustice. Now, this federal holiday, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, comes nearly 55 years after the April 1968 killing of a king who led a non-violent movement pushing for equality for Black Americans throughout the 1950s and 1960s.
And in Burkina Faso, 50 women have been abducted by gunmen, that is in Burkina Faso's northern province of Sogum, on January 12th and 13th, the government has said. Armed men seized the women as they were picking wild fruit outside of the village of Liki, about 15 kilometers from the town of Aribinda and in another district west of the town. All means available are being used in air and on ground to find these women, a security source told AFT news agency. Aircrafts are flying over the area to detect any suspect moving. According to local officials, the army and its civilian auxiliaries have carried out an unsuccessful sweeps over the area. Now in climate news, the west coast of the United States withstand its 9th major storm in 3 weeks. California Governor Gavin Newsom has signed a new executive order to further bolster the emergency response as his state contends with widespread flooding and mudslide. In a statement on Monday, Newsom's office said that the onslaught of the atmospheric rivers, relatively intense, narrow bands of moisture that can bring heavy precipitation and storm gusts, resulted in at least 20 fatalities and forced the evacuation of tens of thousands of residents. Now, the latest executive order comes 2 days after U.S. President Joe Biden declared the situation in California a major disaster and ordered additional federal aid for the waterlogged state.
Well, a lot is happening, but I'll also tell you that our papers are fully equipped with a number of stories that you need to look out for this morning. Starting off with the Daily Monitor, schools defy government directive and hike fees. Call it a school for scandal, where many educational institutions across the country have turned a deaf ear to government directives not to raise fees in the next term that will be starting just in 14 days from now. Parents of Kawempe fire victim demand justice, and the picture over there is showing the parents of a deceased daughter, that is Patricia Arinda, who lost her life in a fire in Kawempe a couple of days ago, and they need justice, or at least they are demanding for it. In more news, Galiwango's footprint in politics and business, but also pastor accused of raping foreign national arrested. Well, that and much more in the Daily Monitor this morning.
Well, of course, Philo, also in the New Vision, we'll be looking at least 32 private universities risk closure. And of course, they give you the reasons as to why this will be happening. But also, Museveni attends Abu Dhabi Sustainability Summit. And there's a photo here of him and his counterpart there, Ali Zaid from the Arab Emirates. Now, bride and groom winners, Thai Note Hell Vision Group. And Landrango's 90-year-old man gets land back after 10 years. And pastor arrested over allegations of raping tourists. And also Dr. Gladys Kalema walks among gorillas. Now in the same papers, looking at sports, SC Vida makes progress there, of course with their new chairman. And also Micho sounds a big alarm. But it's still looking at sports, Boji has an iron fist. Now, of course, they give you more of these stories in the New Vision.
And looking at the sports in the Daily Monitor, Cranes Alliance comes up with. Now, you could call this a big clash where both teams kicked off their campaigns fairly with a draw and a win to take into the Uganda-Senegal Group B clash in Annaba, Algeria tomorrow. Well, and a new coach as Gazelles start the Zone V preps, looking at their performance. And in Australian Open, heartbreak for Kyrgios, a home favorite Nick. Australian's Open dream ended without him hitting a ball after knee injury. Well, that and many other stories in our local papers here, the New Vision and the Daily Monitor. But Robert, I know that you do have your daily words of wisdom this morning. What are you telling us?
It's always about your health, making your health your #1 priority by ensuring that you boost your immune system, because when you do that, then that means you will not fall sick regularly. Now here I'm holding not medicine, no treatment, but immune boosters. These drinks are very tasty, very sweet, but they boost your immune system. It is Hallelujah Ginger Tea, Hallelujah Tamarind Drink, Hallelujah Banana Fruit Juice. At any retail, any supermarket at just 1,500, I guarantee you, you'll get a bottle and you'll make a lot of savings. You won't spend on treatment, but also you'll be more productive because you'll not be sick.
Well, there you go. Grab yourself a bottle of any of those 2 or 3 flavors to see what matches up to your taste. But also, this morning, our poll question, where we would love you to be part of the conversation, is about the National Social Security Fund. What plans do you have for your retirement? Well, it has been in the news, not necessarily for the good news, but, well, the performance. We're looking at the compliance of the nationals going low. Now, what can we do to make sure that compliance is taken a level higher? And our poll question this morning, how best can the National Social Security Fund be more popularized amongst Ugandan employers? How best can the National Social Security Fund be more popularized amongst Ugandan employers? Hashtag UBCGMU. Let us know what you think could be the best solution to this. But also use our WhatsApp social media platform. The number is 0709 602 592. How best can the National Social Security Fund be more popularized amongst Ugandan employers? You're watching Good Morning Uganda. We're going for a break. It's a Tuesday. You need some inspiration for the day. We are here for that. We are all about that. When we get back, more discussions on NSSF between myself and Felix. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
This a big clash where both teams kicked off their campaigns fairly with a draw and a win to take into the Uganda-Senegal Group B clash in Annaba, Algeria tomorrow. Well, and a new coach as Gazelles start the Zone V preps, looking at their performance. And in Australian Open, Heartbreak for Kyrgyz. Home favorite Nick Australian's open dream ended without him hitting a ball after knee injury. Well, that and many other stories in our local papers here, the New Vision and the Daily Monitor. But Robert, I know that you do have your daily words of wisdom this morning. What are you telling us?
It's always about your health, making your health your #1 priority by ensuring that you boost your immune system, because when you do that, then that means you will not fall sick regularly. Now here I'm holding not medicine, no treatment, but immune boosters. These drinks are very tasty, very sweet, but they boost your immune system. It is Hallelujah Ginger Tea, Hallelujah Tamarind Drink, Hallelujah Banana Fruit Juice. At any retail, any supermarket at just 1,500, I guarantee you'll get a bottle and you'll make a lot of savings. You won't spend on treatment, but also you'll be more productive because you'll not be sick.
Well, there you go. Grab yourself a bottle of any of those 2 or 3 flavors to see what matches up to your taste. But also, this morning, our poll question, where we would love you to be part of the conversation, is about the National Social Security Fund. What plans do you have for your retirement? Well, it has been in the news, not necessarily for the good news, but, well, the performance. We're looking at the compliance of the nationals going low. Now, what can we do to make sure that compliance is taken a level higher? And our poll question this morning, how best can the National Social Security Fund be more popularized amongst Ugandan employers? How best can the National Social Security Fund be more popularized amongst Ugandan employers? Hashtag UBCGMU. Let us know what you think could be the best solution to this. But also use our WhatsApp social media platform. The number is 0709 602 592. How best can the National Social Security Fund be more popularized amongst Ugandan employers? You're watching Good Morning Uganda. We're going for a break. It's a Tuesday. You need some inspiration for the day. We are here for that. We are all about that. When we get back, more discussions on NSSF between myself and Felix. Good morning. This is a big clash where both teams kicked off their campaigns fairly with a draw and a win to take into the Uganda-Senegal Group B clash in Annaba, Algeria tomorrow. Well, and a new coach as Gazelles start the Zone V preps, looking at their performance. And in Australian Open, heartbreak for Kyrgyz. Home favorite Nick Australian's open dream ended without him hitting a ball after knee injury. Well, that and many other stories in our local papers here, the New Vision and the Daily Monitor. But Robert, I know that you do have your daily words of wisdom this morning. What are you telling us?
It's always about your health, making your health your #1 priority by ensuring that you boost your immune system, because when you do that, then that means you will not fall sick regularly. Now here I'm holding not medicine, no treatment, but immune boosters. These drinks are very tasty, very sweet, but they boost your immune system. It is Hallelujah Ginger Tea, Hallelujah Tamarind Drink, Hallelujah Banana Fruit Juice. At any retail, any supermarket at just 1,500, I guarantee you'll get a bottle and you'll make a lot of savings. You won't spend on treatment, but also you'll be more productive because you'll not be sick.
Well, there you go. Grab yourself a bottle of any of those 2 or 3 flavors to see what matches up to your taste. But also, this morning, our poll question, where we would love you to be part of the conversation, is about
50,000 shillings only. Yes! 150,000 shillings only to keep you connected to your loved ones this holiday season.
Dial *175*94# to activate free 1 GB instantly and 100% double data on all weekly and monthly bundles for 3 months. Get one today while stock lasts from the nearest Airtel shop. Happy holidays this festive season with Airtel, the smartphone network.
The Tales of Kasozi, brought to you by Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello?
Hello?
This is Kasozi. How can I help you?
Hey, Kasozi, my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for.
Campus? Really?
Hey, you don't remember me?
Okay, so how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions, and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number, and you send it to her chap chap.
My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die.
What?
Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Gulu. So can we meet at CPS, we talk about it?
Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next.
Tofera, refrain from unnecessary engagement with strangers over the phone. This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Keeping an eye on all your balance the old way.
I got this. yeah. Balance is... yeah.
What is he up to now?
Star 11.
Keeping an eye on all your balance with the My Airtel app. You have the power in your pocket. The power to see all your balance in one place and in real time. Unlock that power with the My Airtel app. Visit the App Store or Google Play now.
I do miss you.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Three minutes after 7 a.m. here on Good Morning Uganda. Welcome to the newsreel this Tuesday. And of course, myself, Philomena, Mastiko, and Felix Nkunda are going to be talking or taking you through it. And we would love to hear from you. We are very excited to hear your perspectives, your thoughts, your opinions regarding NSSF. Now, NSSF as an institution for the last decade it's been doing quite well. It's been performing well. For the last about 10 years, they have been giving those double-digit interests to a number of Ugandans, at least the people that deserve these interests. And we've been all smiles. We've been happy. I mean, this could have been or is one of the announcements that any person that serves with NSSF was always looking forward to at the end of the day. And right now, as I speak, again, it went on to be one of the biggest funds in the East African region, looking at about 5 billion Uganda shillings holding in their accounts. And well, right now it's in the news. It's not exactly really the best of news, but there are certain aspects that we need to look at. One of the reasons as to why it's in the news, Felix, when it comes to the compliance, especially in the formal sector, the compliance is actually very low and it's very stagnated. We are seeing people, or we are seeing employers or employees with dormant accounts, meaning that they have not been remitting money as they should be, as they're expected to do on a monthly basis. And also, we have realized that when it comes to the employers, they're not also exactly contributing to that or helping their employees to contribute the money they're supposed to be. Ideally, an employee is supposed to be paying 5% of their salary, depending on the salary scale. And as an employer, you're expected to contribute 10%, actually 15% to the employees' submissions.
As a top up,
yeah, to the top of it. But right now the compliance is very low, and we are starting now to wonder, when it comes to the retirement time, what is going to happen to the people? You know, so our conversation is going to be headed towards that, but also in regards to that, our poll question, which again is in relation to the discussion. We would love to know from you, how best can the National Social Security Fund be more popularized amongst the Ugandan employers? How best can the National Social Security Fund be more popularized amongst Ugandan employers? The hashtag is UBCGMU. The WhatsApp number is 0709-602-592. And maybe, Felix, this is where you come in and just maybe break down for us the National Social Security Fund and why it's very relevant to a Ugandan employee.
Well, The NSSF per se, which definitely later on stands for the National Social Security Fund, is an establishment that is guised under a social fund that is meant to cause assistance to any subscribers. Now, and it is not unique to Uganda, by the way.
Yes.
It's an international practice, which actually we believe that the School of the Same Thought was an imagination from the Declaration of Rights and the International Charter on social and economic rights, where they vouch that people who are in employment must be assisted by government or a government institution to prepare for the times when they will be not able to execute as they do. Social funds are international and they are very, very helpful. They reduce the burden on government in terms of welfare for its citizens. You can imagine how many people would need assistance after probably retirement, after they get challenges, disability, just to mention but a few.
Yes.
But later on, if they have been serving with this institution, how they can move on with life. So it's a big game changer for any serious institution or government. It is one of those replications that turns into helping the elderly. Like you see the elderly fund, the people with disability. This is supposed to be an alternative. And yet it is their own contribution, not necessarily the government.
Yes.
You get the point. So it's the general background of the NSSF was basically to bring into place an institution that could help workers be able to keep money and earn off that money in the long term. So NSSF is a long-term investment for workers who are subscribers to that fund. And it being that, there's no way it would have been implemented or actually brought to book or to life without domesticating it under a particular law which brought into play what we call the NSSF Act, which also gives demarcations into how particular ventures will be carried on and the modus operandi of this institution, how remittances will be given or subscribed by the different players, both voluntary and those that are meant to subscribe that particular money. Now, the remittancy of this particular fund to the pool, which is the NSSF, the common fund of the NSSF, has been a big challenge even from inception.
Yes.
And there are many people who are even against it, I must say, as a matter of fact. One, there's a great burden put on the shoulders of the employers. And on top of that, this be made legal. Now, once that was brought in place, there are many things that should have been discussed, rather discussed in that line. And this was the trick of government. It was a trick for government to shift that burden to the employers.
Yes.
Yet
Because
under
they
normal
deal directly with the
circumstances,
employees.
that those remittances should be from a centralized fund or a consolidated fund, because it under the aspect of the premise of being a national social security fund. The nationality in the fund should be put under the premise of government. But I think smartly it ended up going into the side of the... So the big question then would be, where is the nationality?
In this, yes.
In the fund. Because if it was government remitting a particular percentage, that would qualify.
Yes.
But now it went to... Now, having sent that burden to employers, no move was done by government to assist the employers make sure this can actually be appreciated. Under normal circumstances, one would imagine that employers equally have their expenses laid out.
Yes. As a business entity, there are certain expenses you have to...
And because of the uncertainty of the business environment in third world countries, you may not guarantee that these remittances will supersede operational costs, production costs, just to mention but a few. The priority of remittances of this 15% on top of every worker, for either, as you said, in the formal sector, cannot supersede other operations. And that's one of the reasons why we see very low or abscondment from very other institutions not to make these payments.
Because currently in the formal sector, the compliance stands at 40%. And we've had very many industries come, factories, plantations.
Every day.
Yes.
There's a lot of abuse of that. But, and this is the thing, again, because the remittance of this percentage to the social security, to the fund, has no direct impact into the line of business of those various institutions. Those have been continued challenges that this fund faces. You get it?
Yes.
So when you talk about why people are not remitting money, most of them don't find reason or purpose to, because this remittance may not directly fall into the line of business of the institutions. And plus, government in its own discipline, in my opinion, should have had a further discussion into aligning its assistance to employers. One, maybe we should have got into discussions like this one, that for every member or for every institution that remits this particular percentage, they can have an argument into a tax reduction.
Yes.
How about that? You get the point. Maybe that, because we must put motivating aspects for employers.
But isn't that what the interests are there? Because every year they have been making announcements, Felix, and the interest rates at one point, 13%, 15%. And for any person who is not registered with NSSF, I'll tell you, you'd start panicking. You're like, but wait, people are actually getting money out of this.
And that's the thing.
Yes.
People, but not the
employers, not the institutions.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, the institution must align its interests with whatever expenses it makes, because they're in business to maximize profits, not to your well-being or your welfare rather is not at the first 3-5 points of an institution. In as much as it's important, it comes somewhere number 7 or 8 or 10 on their list. So in as much as their interest individually, but what is being done for the employer. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges. What is in for the employer?
Yes.
Of course, when you remit, you have motivation, but all those things have since then been hard to prove.
So they have focused, can we say that we focus more on the employees? They're the ones who are gaining quite a lot than the employers.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the challenge is even goes further, that it being a national fund, for example, shouldn't we be talking about where, because government manages the fund.
Yes.
And that's all it does. What more? You get the point. But and these are the questions that how do we move government to be a part of the contributor? How much money does it, for example, when you go to the budget, people have been doing, you've been talking about the budget, how much money is cut out to go to that fund? I would stand to be corrected if it's any. Not in terms of paying it as a loan, but in terms of as a contribution.
Yes.
So I think to nationalize the fund, we must do more, and to make people appreciate the relevance. By the way, as a matter of fact, a national social security fund is a very important
and I feel like that is what we need to understand, because we have failed to grasp what's the essence. Yes, I am saving my money there, but then what happens?
And also, Philo, even on top of looking at that as a challenge, what will happen after? Definitely one would say, I'll get my money and I'll do whatever I have with it. But there are 2 or 3 things we may also look into. Have we done enough of civilization in terms of this? How civil is the fund? Secondly, do the people have the right information about the fund?
Yes.
Third, trust issues. There are lots of questions that surround the fund. And then enforcement. What happens to people who don't make the remittances?
What are they missing out? Well,
is there any mechanism of enforcing? What happens to FIDO if you don't pay this money for your workers, but probably you're cutting it off the work? Like,
where is it going? Where is it going? We've had several cases where employees, after a while, you know, you have worked for this organization, you've worked for this company for, you know, you've been generous with the time you've given them. At the end of the day, when you walk to that institution, the balances are not balancing if they're there. If they're actually there. But according to the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, that is Honorable Betty Amongi, recently revealed that there's been a declining trend, and you know, all the way from 2010 to 2022, back when it was at 32%, and right now standing at 11%. And also, just maybe for the case of the statistics, she also talked about how the stagnated number of the contributing members is at 630,000. Now, these are people who are actively contributing members, and about 690,000 dormant accounts. Again, the compliance level is standing at 40%, but also we need to look at the informal sector, Felix. Right now, Uganda's informal sector is it's started by about 75%. How is it possible that we can drag the 75% into the formal sector? Because, you know, when it's informal, it's very hard, you know, to have them submit their money. Even with the new, I know we do have the amendment, the NSSF Amendment Act of 2020, is it 2022? Yes, where they are actually even urging the informal sector to get into it. Voluntary contribution. But also, again, this is the same issue that has been faced by the Uganda Revenue Authority when it comes to collection of taxes with the informal sector. It's so huge, 75%. What do we do about that? How do we get them to, how do we reduce that number? Of course, it's not something we can achieve wholesomely, but how do we reduce that number? Because it's worrying.
Yeah, but I think it's just about having the right systems in place. For example, most recently we saw URSB coming out to see how to register businesses. What is the effort of these institutions in assisting the informal sector register their businesses? Because that's the starting point. The people in the markets, are their businesses registered? Do they have TIN numbers? Can they trade using these TIN numbers? Because that's where it all starts.
Well, people really evade the TIN numbers because they know now taxation is coming. Yeah.
But it starts from one point. Like, if you help these people register their businesses and tell them the benefits of the same, like, it has to start there. How much sensitization have we put into the informal sector in terms of managing businesses? Okay? Like, what is the input for us before we can demand what we can get from them? Has government interested itself in the informal sector away from chasing vendors from corridors of Kampala all the time? Like, what arrangements? You've built markets, yes. What's next now? Go to the ladies who sell food, these small restaurants. How do you, like, away from just thinking of what we can get from them, what can we do for them? Because besides all these other things, these are areas, all these are stations of survival for some particular families. So let's get into registration of businesses. Let the relevant authorities go down to the people, explain to them the relevancy of having their businesses registered, the relevancy of paying taxes, and later on, the relevancy of subscribing to funds like the NSSF. And tell you what, these informal sectors are doing their own NSSFs.
That's true.
Absolutely. Yes. They are doing their own NSSFs, and they are doing them probably even much better. They have this, they have the Bibinas, the SACCOs,
yes.
You know, they
the
keep money,
the cooperatives,
annually, they save their money on a weekly, then at every end of year they share this money or they invest it. People who come to borrow the money, I know many actually. I don't know of a market that doesn't have these barriers. So it's about us helping them understand how do we formalize some of these institutions or whatever plans they have. But the big question, even on top of involving these informal sector people, is how is the fund ready to take them up as well? Has it addressed the challenge? Because you want to call another cluster of people, yes. But how ready are you? What mechanisms have you put in place that are tailor-made to the informal sector? You're going to go to Gisenya and find people who are doing scrap business. Man comes in, has no idea about the lot of documentation you have, fill a
yes.
form, and then you come to open.
But you see, actually, the process may not necessarily be very long. Or I could be speaking when I'm oblivious to the situation of somebody.
You know how these things work.
Yes.
There's a form to fill of about 3, 4, 5 pages. Then the next of kin, the photo, all those things. Now, when people go to their circles, no one asks for those things.
No, they know you. They know what you do.
Hey, Philomena, yes. Okay. The only thing you need to know, your name, your ID, no mudara. Like sometimes simplicity is one of the, like this red tape has been one of the biggest challenges of funds like NSSF.
Yes.
For example, when it's time to get people's money, they will ask you where you're from, who gave birth to you, when, like, and these are things, in law we used to call them, these are technical challenges,
yes.
that are meant to probably make someone become tired of the process.
Yes.
So that's the question. If you want to deal with the informal sector, reduce on the red tape. Cut out a particular plan that fits well in these people.
Yes.
How do you bring the service closer? Reduce the English. This English,
it should be very easy for them, and
you know, yes. There's so much English. The directors are speaking English, the employees are speaking English, everyone is English. Some of us are not very conversant with this language. If you want to come close, and these are some, by the way, it is laughable, yes. But these are some of the small things that people will tell you in the informal sector. The man will tell you straight up,
yes.
So let's cut out or tailor make a product that is buyable by the people in the informal sector, if you want to bring them on board. But also, we need to make this fund, make the promises we can keep up to.
Yes.
I think most times NSSF has made promises it has not kept. And mostly when people are getting their money.
Yes.
People become disabled. They move. And that's why you see some accounts are redundant. No, people don't. But and people, there's that fear. As I've told you, there's a lot of English that brings fear.
And as a fund should be user friendly, if that's for the lack of a better word, actually.
It should be as friendly to the subscribers as possible. If it means going retail, I don't know, find ways. Now I saw they introduced cards. These are making things worse.
Well, we're talking about NSSF compliance in the formal sector. Why are we witnessing a stagnated number of active subscribed members to the Social Security Fund? And how best can we have those numbers move up? How do we get NSSF to be popularized amongst employers? How does this fund support the employers as well? Yes, we know that the employees are in its favor, but what happens to the employer? What's the big plan? What is the end goal for the employer and the Social Security Fund? And get into our poll question. Let us know how best can NSSF be more popularized amongst employers. That is the discussion that is going on between myself and Robert, rather than Felix here. And you are talking about the card, which again, by the way, I've also had a couple of people ask me about the card, you know, how it is going to be used and all of that, which clearly I understand. But also talking about the new, can I call it the new move they came in with, the midterm access of the funds. Now, this is one thing that people in the formal sector, the subscribers, have been asking for for the last couple of years, and we saw MPs take it on seriously until, you know, it was passed. But also the conditions, I don't know how applicable they are for a couple of people, because again, there have been issues. We're glad it happened. You can now access, you can have a midterm access to your funds. But see, for a member who is not 45 years of age and you haven't contributed to the fund for at least 10 years, you cannot access your money to that. Now, can we say this is a fair, you know, it's a fair prerequisite?
It's a fair prerequisite to who?
And I mean, that's the question. Is it up to the subscribers?
Come on. It can't be fair to the subscribers.
If you're not a 40, they said 45 years, yes. If
yeah.
45 years.
But doesn't that defeat the purpose of social security? And that was our argument even at the time of passing. And this was brought in the spirit of COVID times, if you remember quite well, that people were struggling and yet they had money kept. But in the aftermath of COVID, doesn't it defeat the spirit of the social security fund? Because it is, they gave, when you look at a social security, it gives you the categories where it falls, or the money should be falling, or when someone should. For example, retirement. There's a reason why this money was tailored to retirement. There's a reason. You're out of active service of work, you're not earning like you used to, you probably need money to start up something or blah, 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 you know. Secondly, when someone gets disabled, when someone is suffering probably a chronic illness or one, they need treatment. Like, all these, doesn't this midterm defeat the purpose for that? It was good-spirited in times of COVID,
yes.
True. But then, now, however, the other argument was, how about reduce the age?
Yes.
That why do we wait for someone to first retire? They can't prepare after retirement. They should prepare towards retirement.
There are people who have even died before retirement. This is a reality that has happened. Yes.
Know? And that's why I'm saying that, how about reduce and say when someone has 3 years to retire or 5 years to retirement, because starting up a business and seeing it run is not something you want to do when you've retired, because those are also other struggles. But when we give you your money, 3 years to retirement, you have the time to see a business work out. By the time you retire, probably the business is well running. These are the arguments we're saying. Instead of talking about midterm, how about we discuss it this way? Because when you put a cap and you say only people have been there for 10 years and until 45, dude, I mean, what's the fuss?
And you know, when you talk about the reduction of age for the people who would want to acquire their midterm funds, the whole thing was, see, young people may actually squander some of this money. They may not exactly use it as is intended to. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, it's, of course, the first feeling is that it's their money after all. But
because that was one of the chants that was on social media, yes.
And that's why I asked you that, regardless of it was passed, but does it defeat the spirit of a social fund? Given the social welfare intentions we looked at for this particular, but it is done, nevertheless. It is a motivator, though, with its own challenges. Now, the other big question, Philo, that you may want to ask around the Social Security Fund in respect of those two aspects and these amendments is, what happens to the number of people who are not anywhere in these sectors where NSSF is looking at, but yet they are earning? You get the point? Like, what happens to them? You have talked about the informal sector.
Yes. The informal and the formal sector.
The formal.
Yes.
But there are other ventures where people are earning money. Like, for example, people who are working outside the country. And there are very many. Very many. I don't know if you cluster them as formal or informal.
Well, because the trend,
like most recent,
the
wave of girls we are exporting to the Middle East, the Qatar, where all these other countries. How do we incorporate them in this? And this is the challenge of NSSF. I don't know if they look at them as informal, or I don't know which one. But we are looking at exported labor.
Yes.
Most recent, it's one of the biggest contributor to the national GDP, and it's a matter of fact. Because if you have Ugandans outside of Uganda working who are more than at least 100,000, or even more, probably about 200,000 out there in the world, how do you tap into that income? And they're the most people who would be willing to save, to have a place where they can save their money away from relatives who steal and all these kind of things, you know.
Yes.
So I think there's a lot that needs to be done that leaves yet to be desired as done by the NSSF. And most recently also it has its challenges of leadership and all this. So with these struggles, I don't know if it is working in favor of building trust.
Especially, yes, when it comes to bridging trust. I mean, right now, there are very many questions coming in from people, especially the people who have been subscribing, the members, the subscribing members. How safe is our money if we have management gaps?
They have lent money, they have lent money there, which is, I think, legal for them to do. But because it may be legal in your face as people who administer or who manage this fund, but in the eyes of the subscribers, where is the accountability? How often do we see officials of NSSF coming out to explain some of these things? That you see the percentage of interest we give you people, we can only make it when we borrow probably this money, lend out this money. You know, when
I mean,
invest this money,
for a big establishment like that with a worth of $5 billion US, I mean, they have investments all over the place. Yes.
In securities, in bonds and whatever. But the PR is lacking. That's what I want to say. And it brings you back to the question, our previous question, that how best can we have this fund more popular to the subscribers? The relationship of the fund and the would-be subscribers is terribly lacking. That people don't have the right information. All they hear is pockets of what was in the news. When NSSF makes this conference, they make them in big hotels. And this is the biggest problem with Ugandan institutions. You'll see the MD having on a good suit with ministers, directors of what.
And for a local Ugandan,
and when you may even check in that hall, and none of those people, a handful is a subscriber. But the people who subscribe, when do you have those national general assemblies?
I am going to think that's the money, that's my money you're using for that.
Of course they are using it for that.
So you need to convince
call these people in Kololo, sector by sector, and tell them about the fund. Let them feel being part of the fund. NSSF, prepare a marathon like other people. Where is your corporate service? Where do you do this?
Social responsibility.
Yes. Well, where do you do it from? These are the things that make people feel for the fund. And this is what people, like, you just can't be having these conferences in the big hotels, abroad, consulting, Ismanya. They have these tokens they normally give a year, whatever subscriber of the year to this big. We have to make it, bring it closer to the people. And this is not because it can be a style of managing the fund.
Yes.
But again, if you want to bring more wananchi, which is something you need to do, by the way, make them feel part of this. Away from that, we are going to struggle with this fund consistently, because it's, on the face of it, it looks like it is for the elite. So people are like, as I told you, there's a lot of English, and that's the problem of Ugandan institutions. Where you can say, there's a lot. That's why one of the politicians said that one of the sportsmen was asking, I think, like, why are you bringing English in these things? And that's where we miss the point. Let's reduce the grammar. Let's improve more on bringing this fund closer to the subscribers.
Well, it is the GMU, Good Morning Uganda newsreel, and we're talking about the NSSF compliance in the formal sector and how best can NSSF be more popularized amongst the employers. How best can the National Social Security Fund be more popularized amongst the Ugandan employers? hashtag UBCGMU, and go on and let us know, or using our WhatsApp number 0709602592. I'll be sharing your thoughts in a couple of minutes. And of course, we would love to hear what you have to say about this. Like Felix says, yes.
Honestly and truly, Fido, you know, for example, the act itself, where it's the custodian of every other activity of the fund, how many people understand it? But you want to bring on board the women in the markets, the gentlemen who, like, are they, how many languages? Have you cut out those particular relevant provisions and put them out there for to read? Do even employees know that they have a right to you get the point. So it's of course there are many efforts that NSSF has done. It has tried, but it has stayed in the urban side, and for me that's the biggest challenge. With its trying, still it's trying in the urban side. How about we go retail? Let's meet the people. Let's go to employers. When do we have these employee consultative forums? You know, I think we need to change in the approach. The fund needs to do a bit of adjustment.
Well, some feedback is coming in from one of the viewers, and he or she is saying, good morning. NSSF is never open about its books, and also taking in money to them is easy, but having that money come out of their custody to the owner is a very, very long and tedious process. You will sweat. Thank you so much. You didn't attach your name to it, but yes, I also do have feedback coming in from one lady here who is saying, Doreen, and you're saying the process of knowing what's going on in SSF is a little bit hard. Previously, they were very open about the interest rates that they were giving to the subscribing members, but now it's a bit complicated when it comes to knowing their mode of operation. This is an institution that keeps people's money forcefully or voluntarily. I think there is need to be very transparent in the operations as well. Thank you so much, Doreen. Well, let the feedback, keep the feedback coming in. I'll be sharing it with the rest of our Good Morning Uganda family. But for now, coming in from our press review, especially looking at the Daily Nation from Kenya and the Citizen over there from Tanzania. And starting off with the Daily Nation, Form 1 Blues for KCPE Stars appearance. And we're looking at about 1.2 million candidates who sat the 2022 KCPE examination in the country, and the candidates are the second last cohort of learners under the 8-4 system. What Machogu's plans for junior secondary mean as well, you can get those details in the Daily Nation. Chebukati's confession, what is this man confessing about? In the Daily Nation, you will find a full story. And still in more stories, pain for the elderly. Now, vulnerable groups to be starved for cash in budget cuts. Clearly, this is a problem that is really getting onto the East African
It's an international challenge.
Yeah, it's becoming an international challenge. And Kenyan held in the Democratic Republic of Congo over church attack. This, of course, in a terrorism news. Now, switching up to Tanzania, what's happening in the Citizen? Government reveals economic growth plans for 2023. Now, pro-growth policies are at the top of the government's economic strategy for the year as it seeks to maintain expansion momentum while cushioning the economy from external shocks. And also light at the end of the tunnel for Liganga Mchuchuma projects as well. You find that in the Citizen. And the appeal to save learners from wild animal attacks. And corporations to carry subsidized fertilizer burden as a new strategy, and several killed in church bombing in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And maybe just to take you briefly through some of the stories again in the Daily Monitor, a new vision, schools defy government directive and continue to hike fees. Galiwango's footprint in politics and business. Well, he was such a distinguished diplomat and a very illustrious industrialist, but also a very loyal politician. You can get that in the Daily Monitor. And looking at the parents of Kawempe fire victim demanding justice. Switching up to the New Vision, 32 private universities risk closure, over 2,000 children hit by black water fever, according to a study. Now, what is black water fever? All the details in the New Vision. Museveni attends Abu Dhabi Sustainability Summit. What is he saying? How is he presenting the case of Uganda? All of that in the New Vision this morning. We're going for a break. When we get back, Mollen will be giving you more from weather and climate, but also she'll be giving you the traffic updates. We do have the GMU agenda also queued up slightly later. Not forgetting that the comments should keep coming in about our poll question on how we can have NSSF be popularized, especially amongst the employers here in Uganda. Good morning.
Keeping an eye on all your balance the old way.
I got this. Yeah. Balance is... Yeah.
What is he up to now?
Star 11.
Keeping an eye on all your balance with the My Airtel app. You have the power in your pocket. The power to see all your balance in one place and in real time. Unlock that power with the My Airtel app. Visit the App Store or Google Play now.
I do miss him.
Every waking day is a reminder just how beautiful this, our land, truly is. The kind of beauty that you can only find here, in the lush green all around us and the wondrous sights within. It's in the distinct aroma of our cooking to the taste of food that takes you on a journey, in the sound of homecoming and the sound of Mother Earth. In the magnificence we find on our travels and the exciting moments we experience. Ours is the kind of beauty that comes in all things big and small. All we have to do is awaken our senses and truly enjoy what's uniquely ours. Explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good morning, Uganda. It is, and right now we want to take you to the roads and see how the traffic is looking like. We'll be starting off with the northern bypass. If you're coming using that road into town, and of course taking in some of the roads connecting there, that is Bombo Road, we are looking at much more of the traffic stopping at that roundabout. But then again, as you head towards Bombo Road, that road seems to be quite clear. If you're using it towards town, even those leaving town with that road, there is a little bit of clear traffic right there. That is with Bombo Road if you're using it right there. But also you look at the other side of the northern bypass if you're going to go to Kalere roundabout, also using that roundabout into town. It looks like that road is also quite clear. So you look at your options right there, as some of that is actually clearing in for this morning if you headed into town. Now, following up with Bombo Road, there is a little bit of traffic that builds in right in there as you head towards the traffic lights that is around Wandegea. But then it does clear after the traffic lights. You look at much more of the clearing traffic as you head towards town. Bombo Road, still you're looking at clear traffic, both going into town but also leaving town. That is one route you can use this morning. And also as you get into the roundabout right there, that is the one now connecting most of the roads right there. That is Kubili roundabout. There is much traffic and much more of that is coming from the other side of Kalere. Now, if you're going to choose between using the Bombo Road and the Kalere Road towards that roundabout, I would prefer that you use Bombo Road, which seems to be quite clear for this morning. Now, ahead of the roundabout, you look at the Upper Road, Binaisa Road, also having some intense traffic for those leaving town. But then again, if you're coming into town, that is more clearer than continuing with Bombo Road, because that does have a little bit of traffic in red lines right there as you head towards town and also those leaving town. By continuing with Bombo Road, right after the roundabout, it does clear off quite often, and you look at more of that also clearing in as you connect into Kampala Road. Then that does start to bring in a little bit of traffic. Take a look at those orange lines right there. That is as you head closer to Kampala Road. Now that is one to look out for. Also for those joining those coming in town and those leaving town, that is going to be quite clear for you. Bombo Road seems to be quite performing for this morning in terms of traffic. If you want to avoid much more of the traffic coming into town, or even if you're leaving town, that will be one option that you can take over there. And of course, Kampala Road does also start to clear up for those leaving town, but getting into town, the traffic starts to build up right there as you join into Kampala Road. Now there is a little bit of traffic right there as you look at the city square, but also that is for those going to connect to Ginger Road. You can expect a little bit of traffic, but then again, if you're leaving town, that seems to be quite clear on Kampala Road, and then you head to Ginger Road where we'll see much more of that also clearing for those leaving town and those joining town. Away from that, we also want to take a look at the weather situation for this morning, but we also have more of the devastating news coming in from some of the reports that were made earlier this week, and that is when it comes to how we see our temperatures rising for this year. Now we're talking about scientists predicting an El Nino event. This is one that is looked at as one of those events that usually are associated with rising temperatures. Now, this will only mean that we can get more into extreme weather events, especially in terms of heat waves. We could see much more of that coming through. And of course, the warning has come through for the return of El Nino in 2023. Scientists are saying that this could actually cause global temperatures to rise off the charts and deliver unprecedented heat waves. And also, the earlier forecast did suggest that El Nino will return later in 2023. That is increasing extreme weather across the globe and making it very likely the world will exceed the 1.5 degrees Celsius mark that was set out by the Paris Agreement. Now, you look at the fact that we've had the last 10 years as the warmest on record, but then again, they're saying the predictions are indicating that 2023 could actually be bringing in more of these extreme weather events. And also, you look at the analysis that has been done on the surface air temperatures. Now, when they talk about El Nino, they are meaning an event that is part of the natural oscillation driven by the ocean temperatures, but also the winds on the Pacific. Now, this event usually switches from the neutral side to the La Nina, which is also associated with the cold conditions. But for the last 3 years, we have seen an unusual run in the consecutive La Nina events, and now the charts are actually indicating that we could be going more for that. If you look at some of the years right there that have been indicated, we look at mostly El Nino events being linked to the previous years from 1975 to 2000, but you also have more of that going in for, again, looking at 2010 up to 2020. That is where we've seen much more of the El Nino events again being predicted to bring further increase in temperatures. Now, the average international model did forecast this to be mostly in the El Nino kind of side. If you look at that image in the middle showing how we are now moving, by April we could be moving from the neutral state towards the El Nino side. If you look at that arrow, now the projection also gives you further as we look at that neutral side going further to El Nino, that is by the month of June. And obviously that puts us at the risk of getting more extreme weather events. You also look at the fact that this year has been forecast to be hotter than 2022, which global data sets already rank it as the 50th or 60th hottest year on record. But El Nino occurring will be again another story. Now, this usually occurs in the northern hemisphere winter, and its heating effect takes months to be felt. It does go on a gradual change, meaning that 2024 is actually more likely to set new global temperature record, because we will be looking at that increasing even towards the following years. Now, the more the worry is about the 1.5 degrees Celsius mark that could be surpassed, and this was a goal that was set out in 2015 when world leaders did converge in COP21 to formulate a path and make sure that the world does not go past that. But if we're looking at 2023, moving into 2024, surpassing that, it means that we are not even halfway the time it was supposed to reach, that is 2030. And so that means that we could be looking at more extreme weather events. We could be looking at more heat waves, more drought, more floods, landslides, very catastrophic disasters, and a lot of which impacts will be felt around the world. We have seen some of that in 2023, right from the heat waves in the US and in Europe to the floods in Pakistan. Nigeria had the worst of the flooding across Africa, having millions of people lack homes because of these extreme weather events, and we're likely to be experiencing much more of that as we talk about some of these events come through. Now, we're already seeing most of the extremes from the flooding, especially, and this year we are still dealing with the storm across California. Now, this morning they were reporting that there has been a little bit of relief in terms of the storms. The rains are starting to go down. However, it's also being on alert, and the President Joe Biden did come out to also give his notice on the people of California, saying that they should be alert in terms of listening to the information that is coming in from the weather centers, but as well take care of themselves. If there is a plan to evacuate in time. And for now, they have had their final burst of the heavy snow and rain. You look at most of the areas that have been affected, that is to the northern side of California, where about 20 people have been reported dead so far, and thousands of people that have also lost their homes. And we do know that authorities are still on ground to carry out evacuations, although the National Meteorological Services are saying that they could have a relief. And of course, now that means that rains will be coming down, but still there's predictions that more storms might be coming to California, and of course that is what is likely to cause more of that extreme conditions. At the same time, we look at extreme conditions in terms of temperatures rising up, but how about the temperatures that are going down also on very, very unprecedented levels? Now, we know that some of the coldest places in the world, especially in Russia, they have had to, over time deal with the cold conditions, but now it is going at a negative 50 degrees Celsius. This is what was reported on Monday across parts of Moscow. They did report temperatures temperatures going below 40. And of course, this is one scenario, some of the images coming through where people are finding now frozen fish in the ground and in the waters. Everything that is living is freezing without protection, without heat. Now, the only safe place that people feel like they should be in their houses, and of course making sure that they have warming conditions. Imagine a scenario where you cannot be outside because of this kind of weather. This is what is happening across parts of Moscow, and temperatures are also forecast to still be below 40 in the coming days. And they are also attributing this to climate change. They are saying it has gotten worse now. They were dealing with cold weather, but at least that was within -10, -20. But going into -50 for this time of the year seems to be extreme. And of course, they are also calling upon more climate action, especially with areas that have been, mostly exposed to this kind of crisis. And this is where now we worry about the marine life. You're going to see more frozen seas. We're going to see more, open waters catching ice, and that means that you cannot have marine life survive that kind of weather. And of course, that is a concern as well. But away from that, we want to take a look at what is happening over the country for this morning. We're looking at mostly cloudy weather that is across the southwestern parts of the country. We also have a few clouds that are starting to develop across northeastern as well as parts of central northern Uganda, that is across Karamoja. You look at areas of Padel, Moroto right there, starting off with quite some cloudy weather. But then again, the rest of the country seems to be having quite a sunny morning. We do have a few systems that are starting to develop over Lake Victoria, and that is what will be bringing in the rains. Now, looking at the forecast for this morning, that is coming in from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority, also seeing more rains that are forecast across the Lake Victoria Basin, and of course that will be coming in later as the day progresses. You look at the eastern side of Lake Victoria Basin, Tororo, Busia, Iganga, and Jinja, forecasting isolated rains. Those will be starting off at quite a warm 28 degrees centigrade, but also over a few areas for those rains. Now, the western part of Lake Victoria Basin, where we have Masaka, Kalisizo, Zimbabwe, and Rakai, we're forecasting those rains again. They will be coming in later as the morning progresses. Most likely that will cross over into the afternoon, but for this morning, we're starting off chilly at 25 degrees. Now you look at Mount Elgon Highlands, where we have Mbale, Bududa, Buko, and Sironko. We're forecasting sunny intervals, starting off with a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade, and also most likely we'll have more sunshine come through later as the day progresses. Southwestern Uganda, Bara, Ibanda, Bushenyi, and Rubirizi, we're forecasting rains. That will be across several places, also starting off chilly at 24. Most likely we'll have some of those rains redeveloping in the afternoon across a few areas within that region. Eastern Uganda, Soroti, Katakuya, Muria, and Kumi, we're forecasting mostly a sunny morning for you, and also that starts off with a warm 28 degrees centigrade. We'll be expecting more sun to come through later in the afternoon, and we could be hitting 30s. That is across eastern Uganda. Now, the eastern part of central, where we have Luwero, Woblenzi, Bururi, and Kaseke, also forecasting a mix of clouds and sun, and that will be starting off with a warm 28 degrees centigrade. Also, that will continue into the afternoon. Now, central northern Uganda, Jumani, Gulu, Kitgum, and Padel, we're starting off with mostly sunny intervals, and that will be starting off quite hot. Take a look at those numbers right there, 29 degrees for this morning, meaning that we'll be hitting the lower 30s by afternoon, and also that is forecast to continue with mostly sunny weather later for northern Uganda. Now, the central parts of the Lake Victoria Basin, where we have Mukono, Kampala, Entebbe, and Wakiso, we're forecasting isolated rains. Those will be coming in as the morning progresses, and also later on in the afternoon we might have some of those rains also coming through, especially for areas within the Lake Victoria Basin, the central area and the western part of the Lake Victoria Basin. You can expect to have those rains crossover, but also for parts of southwestern Uganda for this time of the year, we continue to give more advice and warning about the low visibility over the area. You're going to be on the road, that is something to look out for, and also some of the cold weather associated with that. That is something to note for especially southwestern Uganda. Well, that is it for the weather updates for this morning. We do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up, and of course later than that we'll also be taking you through sports, after which we'll be going in for Good Morning Uganda Extra. My name is Mollen, Kenyena, wishing you a good day.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Every waking day is a reminder just how beautiful this, our land, truly is. The kind of beauty that you can only find here, in the lush green all around us and the wondrous sights within. It's in the distinct aroma of our cooking, to the taste of food that takes you on a journey, in the sound of homecoming and the sound of Mother Earth, in the magnificence we find on our travels and the exciting moments we experience. Ours is the kind of beauty that comes in all things big and small. All we have to do is awaken our senses and truly enjoy what's uniquely ours. Explore Uganda, the pearl of Africa.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Get away with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your transactions. Dial *165*5*3# to apply. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A shotgun is a gun with a long barrel. It is mainly used for hunting. So, what does it mean to call shotgun?
For tomorrow's work trip, Ashley is coming with us.
I call shotgun.
You can't call shotgun.
Look, I know usually you can't call shotgun the day before a car trip, but I just did. So I'm sitting in front.
No, you're not. Ashley is driving, so her dog Dublin will be riding shotgun.
When you call shotgun, you are claiming the seat next to the driver. This expression comes from the days of the Wild West. In a covered wagon or stagecoach, the person sitting next to the driver held a shotgun. This was for protection. And that's English in a Minute.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Welcome to GMU Agenda here on Good Morning Uganda, 5 minutes after 8 a.m. on the 17th of January. It's a Tuesday. There is